Okay, now that we have our base texture applied, we're going to start working on this surface. If you're working on a real texture, what you're going to do is you're going to be looking at a picture of the geometry that you want to simulate, because textures, what they do is to simulate volumes that don't actually exist in the 3D object. So they simulate complex, sometimes complex geometry that if you try to do it on the 3D object, it would take too many polygons. So it's better for us just to simulate them on the textures. So suppose this is a excuse me, suppose this is a sort of a frame that we have here, similar to the one we saw in the examples. I'm not going to be looking at the example and looking here. I'm going to try to do this from memory and just apply it to this one. Of course, if you're doing a real one, like I said, you're probably going to be looking at the pictures and trying to do it the same way. Here, this is not necessary because we're just want to show you the process of doing it. As you can see, we still have this other texture below that we had applied. So if we want to get rid of that one, we got several ways of doing it. A simple way is just to copy and paste this one, or grab this one here and control alt delete, and then you fill this area with the color that it's in here. So I'm going to do it this way, and then we're going to start working on this frame. Okay, so imagine the light coming from that area, from that region here, from the top left of your rectangle. So it's coming this way. So what I need is to look at my reference and see how thick this is, how thick I'm going to need to do this thing. So I'm going to do an average thickness, just so that you have an idea of how it's going to be. Well, first I'm going to do the inside. So I'm going to select a whole a box here. Of course, I'm going to be working on layer 3, which is this one. So if I want to grab it a little bigger here, okay, and then I'm going to work with Control U, and first, sorry, I'm going to copy and paste one on top. I like to work with loaded layers, then work on this one. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of, make it a bit darker. Then I'm going to drag it to this icon here and get a copy of it, and do exactly the opposite. Add light to it. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is select half of it and cut it this way. You see that we already start to have some idea of volume here, because if the light is coming this way, this area here is not getting light, and this one is getting a lot of light. So we start to have an idea of volume here. Now I'm going to make another box here, and I'm going to invert the selection, because I'm selecting this area here and what I want is the outside area. So I invert the selection, okay, and then I copy and paste again. So this one went outside, which is not such a big problem. It's in the right place now. Okay, and then again we're going to use lightness and contrast. Lightness, gonna have less lightness, and then make a copy again, and then again a lot of light. Okay, now we're going to do is cut, but we're going to cut this part now. So we did exactly the same thing. Only thing is that this area here now takes more light, and this area on this side here takes less. Is the opposite of the inside. Okay, and then you can already see that we have we already have a sense of volume to this thing. Okay, now what I like to do is add a bit of those chamfers that I talked to you about, that they give a lot of realism to the edges. So I would just flatten all these layers, merge all these layers, so that I have the whole the whole object in one layer, okay, because I don't need those separate layers anymore. And then I'm gonna make a little lighter, just like a chamfer to this area here. Several ways of doing this. You can do it with a brush, you can do it anywhere you want. Create another layer so that you're safe, and grab the color here, make it a bit lighter, and then put your brush here, hold shift and click there. Okay, same thing for this area here, click here with the brush, hold shift and click again. This way you can get a nice straight line. Now here you need something that could be a bit lighter than this, so you need something like this for your chamfer. Click here, hold, and click here and hold shift and click here, and click here and hold, and then click here. Okay, so you have a little chamfer here. Now usually things are not that straight, so you can use your blur tool and blur it in some areas a little bit. Okay, so it won't be so straight because objects are not so nicely done like this. So you can blur it a bit, and you can make it very strong, the blur, or not so strong. You can control it here in the strength. Okay, so you can blur it. Don't blur everything the same, because then it won't give the effect that you're looking for. So just a little bit in some places so that it's not so rough. You can have the same kind of chamfer in the inside, or maybe it's very flat, the surface, but rarely is. Usually you have some sort of chamfer, but maybe it's more subtle here inside. So you can make your brush a bit smaller and have your chamfer here, maybe a bit lighter. Okay, see if that does it for you, and you can see without it and with it, and then blur it a little bit. There you have it. It gives a bit more, it looks a bit more real with the chamfer, right? So put the chamfer here as well. Okay, whoops, it's not really straight, is it? Good. And there you go. And there you have your frame, starting to look more realistic, the way you would expect it to look. And here, even if you don't apply the chamfer, you can give it a little bit of blur. It's in this layer here. So if you're doing this layer only has the chamfers we did, right? You know, if you can see here, but just the chamfers. So I want to work with this one now. Okay, and give it a little bit of blur. I'm gonna zoom in so that you can see, and leave a little bit of sharp edge, blur, sharp edge, blur, because this variety is what gives realism to your images. Okay, good. Okay, once you've done that, now we're going to go to the cast shadow.